Howdy, folks. We're back with part 3 of Dwight Yoakam's histories. A lot of anecdotes, vignettes about his life, his perspective, how it grew, how it developed, where he grew up. I did not know he grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and went to Ohio State for a year or two, then moved to Nashville. Then, after a short stint there, went out to LA. But he was born in Pikeville, Kentucky. And that's his home. That's where he considers his home and all this stuff. But Renee Mooberry made a gift to the channel for me to do this 53-minute special from CMT. And I think it was done a little while ago. I'm not quite sure. And we get a lot of information. And I've said, and this was probably my happiest moment on here, where I said early on, before knowing much about Dwight, just by hearing the way he talked and developed his thoughts, that he was a philosopher. And when most people picture philosophers, they picture, this Socrates statue and such. But I could tell by the way he developed his thoughts, answered questions, was contemplative and such, that he was a philosopher at heart. But I had no basis for that other than my observations of him. I was a philosophy major at Rutgers, and also a criminal justice major. So I was a dual major, but I'm a philosopher at heart. I'm very comfortable with questions, and most people really like answers. I'm fine with questions. If I could get things that are reasonably reliable, I'm good with them too. But I said there's something about Dwight. Well, I found out in part 2 of this that he studied philosophy at Ohio State. Now, granted, he was only there a year or two, but the fact that you would study philosophy, I don't know how many courses he took and in what, but still, if you take 3 or 4 philosophy courses, it means you really do like delving into deeper thought. You don't have to major in it to be a philosopher per se. It's just how you process life. That's how Dwight processes life. It's part of the why he was able to jump into music and acting at an incredibly high level and make both work. So let's see here. We're in part 3 of Dwight Yoakam's history. Thank you, Renee, again for this deep dive into Mr. DY.
Time, right place, I think, for both of us. It was just that kind of predestined, bit of fate.
Dwight and Pete started to play at small country venues in and around L.A., anxious to share their music. But they insisted on playing only Dwight's original material, not top 40 country songs. And they lost more jobs than they got.
We got fired from every club we played. And we never finished an engagement. If it was 2 nights, we played 1. If it was 4 nights, we played 2. I think we never did 1 night, because if we did 1, they might have stopped us after 2 sets and said, stop.
Due to the overwhelming commercial failure of what we were attempting, I found myself without a place to live for a couple of months.
Losing jobs as quickly as they found them, Dwight was facing sleeping in his car in a friend's driveway. Pete, feeling badly that his new partner would be sleeping in his car, offered Dwight his tiny laundry room as an alternative.
He came over and he had a sleeping bag, and it was so small that you had to close the door and then lay down. Like if I was to go to see if he was awake and open the door, I would hit him in the head. So it was very small, this little room. And I was in the living room on a piece of foam and a blanket. And that's sort of how we survived as musicians.
As cliche as it sounds, the irony is that the darkest hour sometimes is just before the dawn.
Oddly enough, the lights peeking over the horizon came in the form of LA's burgeoning punk rock scene. Since they could no longer get themselves booked into regular country venues that wanted top 40 cover bands, they began to play in what were becoming known as cowpunk bars. Cowpunk was a loud, in-your-face form of alternative country, a hybrid of twangy country and rockabilly. Dwight and the Kentucky Bourbon fit right in.
We combined what was our aggressive nature, which could be misconstrued as youthful exuberance, with great songs and a great singer and excellent musicians. We were a pretty overpowering band.
We came on doing it as wildly and recklessly as any bluegrass band in 1944 would have been doing, It was loud, proud, and reckless,
Dwight and the Kentucky Bourbon began to create a buzz around L.A. Fans began spreading the word. One of the people who was encouraged to go see Dwight was Manuel, famous clothing designer to the Stars. Impressed with Dwight's charisma, Manuel passed Dwight's name on to an agent at the famous Halsey booking agency in Tulsa.
Wow.
The name struck a chord with Sherman Halsey, son of the agency's owner. He remembered a demo tape he had received years before from Dwight. Soon, Sherman, who had just moved to L.A., was on his way to see the new, improved Dwight Yoakam.
I walk into this club, and here's this guy playing absolutely the most traditional country sounds in the world at that point. But the entire crowd is like a complete punk crowd seeing him. You know, there's like spike hair over here, and then a guy that's 65 years old from Oklahoma sitting next to that guy. And everybody loved it.
In 1984,
That's
Sherman
when the Clash
called
was
me on
big.
the phone. He had moved out here, and he said, "You know what? I think if you'll let me manage you, my dad and I think I can get you a record deal."
With Sherman on board, Dwight and the Kentucky Bourbon began touring with punk and rock bands like X, Los Lobos, and the Blasters. Sherman saw in Dwight not only potential for a record deal, but the opportunity to shape a new star in the emerging world of music videos.
Dwight was a really visual act. I mean, he looked like James Dean in a cowboy hat. He was really thin. He had a great sense of style.
To develop the image, Dwight knew he needed to upgrade from the red checkered store-bought shirts and cheap boots he had worn since arriving in L.A. He
Yep.
called on the man who had been instrumental in the fashion images of Elvis, the Beatles, and
Yep.
Keith Richards, among others, Manuel. Manuel came up with the perfect look.
We tightened up the pants, created a little jacket.
Manuel got it instantly, you know, and started making him sort of the classic stuff, which was different than he was making for other acts at that time.
Dwight took his new look and music back to Nashville in search of a record deal. But Music Row was unimpressed with Dwight's hardcore traditional country music. They were more interested in the smoother, more vanilla sounds of mainstream pop.
Country music was slicker then. It was more orchestrated. They had really gone beyond the cowboy hat image of the years before, and it was more of a Las Vegas sort of style. And Dwight was going back to more of a straight traditional country sound.
People just said, "Oh, that's all hillbilly music," and dismissed it in a way.
Unable to get a major label to record and market his brand of music, Dwight decided to take matters into his own hands and cut his own record. He scraped enough money together to record an extended play EP, and in November of 1984, released Guitars, Cadillacs, etc., etc. The 6-song EP captured the Dwight Yoakam sound and the attention of music critics from coast to coast.
We were getting a lot of really, really hard to get, very cool press. You know, we'd get like the Los Angeles Times or the New York, papers that normally wouldn't write positive stuff about country music. They were loving this EP.
In 1985, Dwight's EP found its way onto the desk of
There
Paige
you go.
Levy, an executive at Warner Brothers Records. Paige heard something special.
It was so country that it was almost foreign to me. And so I had to listen several times, and the more I listened to it, I thought, you know what? This is really cool. This is the real deal.
I did
Paige
that
immediately
video.
arranged to meet with Dwight in Austin, where he was touring with the Blasters. One show was all it took for Paige to be convinced she had found country's next superstar.
And Dwight did a show, and it's just amazing. I mean, I understood then why the non-country fans like seeing Dwight, because he's very aggressive. I mean, they play like a rock band, but it was definitely country.
Not very many people seemed to get it at that point. But Paige was somebody that really, really got it and was a champion of Dwight, and going in and telling the label, this is something that's new and cutting edge.
To me, it was a no-brainer. This guy was going to be a big star.
In 1985, Warner Brothers announced the addition of Dwight Yoakam to its Reprise label. Dwight was about to find out if his 9 long years of struggle were going to pay off, or just fade away like a million other California dreams.
Vindicated and flabbergasted.
That's what it is.
All at the same time.
And later, Dwight takes a gamble on a pet film and nearly loses everything.
For the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Really?
By 1982, Dwight Yoakam had already struggled for 5 years as an unknown Los Angeles singer when he met guitarist Pete Anderson. The instant rapport between the two, both personally and musically.
But I hope we go to that story. I'm sure we are. that teaser about the most painful experience of Dwight's life was a film that almost ruined him. I did not know this part of his history.
Gave rise to a hard-edged hybrid of traditional honky-tonk and West Coast rockabilly. After years of rejection by the country music establishment, they parlayed success in the alternative rock and cowpunk clubs of California into a record deal with Reprise Records in Nashville.
I'm a honky-tonk man.
Honky Tonk Man was a brilliant remake of a Johnny Horton tune originally recorded in 1956, the year Dwight was born. Dwight's version was an instant hit and would forever be his trademark song.
It kind of became a summation of the sound, the kind of the life we'd all been living in those joints and honky-tonks all over Southern California.
He had his look together, he had his sound together. He had an original thing going. And I knew in the bottom of my heart, he was the guy to carry the flag at that moment.
I just think the phrase, a honky-tonk man, filled the image of Dwight. I mean, that became his trademark song.
With the single Honky Tonk Man climbing the charts, Reprise Records released Dwight's debut album, Guitars, Cadillacs, etc., etc., on March 3rd, 1986. The album was a huge critical and commercial success, selling more than 1 million copies, reaching #1 on the country chart,
awesome.
and crossing over to Billboard's pop album chart as well.
That's crazy.
For the 30-year-old country boy from Pikeville, long, frustrating years of rejection and struggle were finally over. The taste of success was long awaited and sweet.
It was a long time coming. And by the time it got here, the road was so smooth. It was just, I'm glad it was over.
Yeah.
It was, it's hard to talk about. Sorry.
Yep.
I'm
pausing to say this is why when I see somebody succeeding in anything, I don't care. I could drive by a pizza shop. I could drive by, it could be a car dealership. It could be anything that somebody is making it work. It could be a little chicken Mexican restaurant, And if I see that they've been in business 4, 5, 10 years and they're making it work, if I see an artist making it work, I'm thrilled for them, because there's no such thing as an overnight success. Unless even people who go on these shows like American Idol and America's Got Talent or whatever they're called and all this stuff, they've put in a lot of time behind the scenes. The Leanne Rimes of the world, who were popular or famous at like age 8, they are absolutely an exception, but she had exceptional talent. And when you see somebody up on stage like Jewel, if you ever read Jewel's book about what her life was like, you would be, and I read it, it was over 500 pages as I recall, and I could not believe how hard her life was. I don't mean minorly hard. I mean, how did anyone survive that kind of hard? And then when you see Dwight and Pete Anderson here talking about their road, the years of struggle, and the amount of doubt that you'd have. Should we quit? Should I move on? Am I delusional? Am I just another one of the millions of delusional artists and actresses and wannabes? Am I one of them? Do I give up on my dream? What do I do? Do I part-time my dream or full-time it? How do I handle this? And then you make it, and then you realize, wow, it didn't have to go this way. There are a lot of other people with just as much talent as you that it just didn't go that way, because there wasn't, what was her name, Paige Levy? There wasn't a Paige Levy. There wasn't, who was the designer, Manuel. There wasn't somebody in the audience that day that knew somebody. There are people in the audience, but they're not connected or connected. And the dynamic of life, let's put it this way, life is so dynamic and so much happens by happenstance. I know people think everything happens because God makes it happen and orchestrates it. I'm not one of those believers in that way. I think that life is dynamic, and the way we handle it is our own business. But when finally something happens where somebody believes enough in you or sees it, it's got to be that right person. And they've got to be in a position of power or authority to make it happen or to get you to the next step. And, having somebody at Warner take a look at you and then believe in you, but then to see that Pete couldn't even talk about it just now in this clip, it's like, I get it. Years of struggle, because I know what that's like. That it finally paid off, and then it got smooth. It's like, wow.
Elated, vindicated, and flabbergasted.
Yep.
All at the same time.
For years, Nashville had branded Dwight too country for country, yet his appeal now extended well beyond country. National media outlets clamored to get the scoop on this country phenomenon, and Dwight couldn't wait to express his opinions about Nashville's music row. He singled out artists he thought were killing the genre, and was vocal about his dislike of the direction Nashville was taking.
Dwight was doing a lot of interviews and was saying things specifically about other artists on the radio, good, bad, or otherwise.
There was a panel that Dwight was on and supposedly said something called radio a bunch of mercenaries. And, Dwight swore he didn't say that.
I was guilty of continuing to be less than selective about my candor and about the state of country music as a business.
Dwight's candor quickly got him in trouble with the Nashville establishment and country radio.
I would see people on the road or run into friends or people, and they'd say, "Are you the one that signed Dwight Yoakam?" And I wouldn't know what to say. I'd say, yes. And they'd either say, "Wow, that is so cool that you took a chance with an artist like that," or "You're the one that allowed that guy to make records and say what he's saying on country radio."
Dwight's not going to kiss anybody's ass. And so that got him in a little trouble from time to time. But you know what? His music was good enough, and hopefully still good music wins out.
All right. That's a good place to end it. Not really. I want to keep watching, which I will. There are 2 more segments to this. It was a 53-minute special they did on CMT. And I broke it into 5 components. But I didn't know Dwight got in trouble with Hollywood. Hollywood, yeah. Well, maybe he got in trouble there too. Maybe he cut his teeth in Nashville, pissing everybody off there. But yeah, you got to be careful. I mean, it's not my style to throw people under the bus. I mean, if something's working for them, it works for them. You may not like the given direction something's going in. I mean, I have that challenge on the channel here because I'm so partial to traditional, to bluegrass, to red dirt, to non-pop, because pop music to me is uncreative, and pop country is no different than pop rock or cliche. Cliches just don't work for me. Like when they came out with the boy bands back when, like the 70s or 80s, it became formulaic. I wasn't into the boy bands ever, but I saw a special on how these guys would go out looking for 4 or 5 young, good-looking, energetic guys who could dance and then mold them into a band. And then go out and find 4 or 5 more when they started to fade and just keep doing that. I don't like cliche. I don't say them. I never want to be one. And in one sense, maybe that goes back to my countercultural roots, or maybe, the symbiosis between the two. Maybe I can't separate them. Maybe it's just one whole that is me and my approach. And to me, it's a pure approach. It's not right or wrong. It's just pure. I stay true to that way of being and living. And sometimes it hurts me. Sometimes it would be better if I could conform. But I've learned to navigate those waters of remaining myself, true to myself, of what I believe. But I don't call artists out that I don't particularly care for. And like you've heard me react to ballads, you've seen me react to ballads. And there are some artists who can pull off singing a ballad. And I mean A-listers, but there are A-listers who absolutely suck at ballads, singing ballads. But I don't mention them by name because it's just not my style to denigrate somebody. Now, if somebody's mean or I think they're an asshole, then I might mention them. But generally speaking, I don't, you know. That's not my way. But in any case, that Dwight gotten himself in trouble, that intrigues me because I know he knows now that he should have known better. I like this definition of diplomacy, and I'll end it at this. Diplomacy is the art of letting people have things your way. And you think about that part of it, and it's like, yeah, there's a way of navigating the water such that people are giving you or what you want, or at least tolerating you so you could do what you want. And with minimal ripple effects. So there you go. All right, guys, you can thank Renee Mooberry for that one. And, of course, Dwight and Pete and the other folks who put this together. Paige Levy, I think that was her last name. Kudos to you, my dear. Should you see that or this? Anyway, have a great day, folks. See you on the next video and keep rocking the country.